Sandbox games like Transport Fever 2 can seem quite intimidating at the start, but many of them are actually quite easy when you understand the fundamentals and get a few tips and tricks. And that's why in this video we'll cover the top 10 tips for you to become a pro in Transport Fever 2. I'm StratGamer, covering strategy, city building games, simulations with game reviews, guides, tutorial, and even let's plays. And I have all of this on Transport Fever 2, so don't hesitate to check the channel for more. Press the subscribe button below to never miss another video and help the channel. Before we dive into those tips, I did want to mention that in Transport Fever 2 there is actually a campaign mode, which is sort of a tutorial. It's a set of missions going from 1860s to 2000 where you slowly discover different mechanics of the game, but at the same time most of what I'm going to talk about isn't in this tutorial, so definitely good to stick around for those 10 tips. In Transport Fever 2 you can transport passengers and you can transport cargo. Tip number 1 is which should you do first, or which is easier? And for me the answer is clear. Transporting cargo is a lot easier than transporting passengers at the start of the game, for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, you're guaranteed to make money from the start. Reason number 2, it's more predictable. And reason number 3, you don't have to care about pollution. Let me dive into that. So reason number 1, as I said, you're guaranteed to make money. What does that mean? This is a normal typical grain farm where you can transport this grain into this food processing plant. You don't need to connect the food processing plant to anything. You don't need to use the food. You don't need to deliver the food to any city. You can just deliver grain forever, and you'll be able to deliver grain to that plant forever. You'll always make money. Versus for passengers, you actually need a demand. If you think about a bus line inside your city, you need people that want to go from point A to point B for that line to transport anything. Versus again, for the grain, it is guaranteed that you can transport grain from here to there. And reason number 2 is it's guaranteed that you know actually how many. You know that the grain farm will produce 200 grain per year. You can transport 200 to there, and because of that you can also calculate easily how many trucks you need to deliver these 200 per year to the food processing plant, and that won't change. That will stay 200 all the time. Versus for your buses, first of all, from the start, you don't know how many people actually want to travel. You have some indications, but you don't know exactly, and that can change with time. That will change with time. And reason number 3 is for cargo, we don't need to care about pollution. This truck here will drive all the way over here and then come back. This will of course create some pollution, which you can see here. But pollution only impacts residential areas. There's obviously no residential areas here. So I can create as much pollution as I want over here. It won't be a problem. Versus again, obviously here in my city, I have all of this residential neighborhood who is gonna care a lot about pollution. And if I want to transfer passengers around here, I will of course need to create some pollution here. So again, tip number 1, start with cargo. Don't try to do pack from the start. Tip number 2 is that the money you make is actually directly linked to the distance. Meaning this route here will make me less money than that route here. But there is an important catch to that. The distance that I just mentioned is based on the straight distance between the pickup point and the delivery point. So here, this is great, right? This is fully straight. But now let's imagine that the road was going a bit more like this. And of course, I know that you would probably not create a road like this, but maybe the road was already there, or maybe you're trying to avoid your lake, your mountain, and you have to follow this road. Well, you're going to be paid for that road, but then your trucks are going to have to take this road, which will take a lot longer, and that means you will be paid less often. So as much as possible, try to just create a straight line. And a small advanced tip here is the money is actually based on the pickup point. It's not based on the farm, which means you don't have to put your pickup point right next to the farm. You can put it a bit further. For example, here, this is still in range because this is still white. If I put it here, I'm going to make this much more money basically. Tip number 3 is again linked to the money. The money that you make is based on the distance, but it's also based on the speed of your vehicle. One of my truck is this one, which has, is going at 100 km per hour, and the other is maybe one of the first truck that you get, the horse-drawn carriages of 18 km per hour. Then I can tell you that this one is actually going to make a lot more money on the same route. And I'm not talking about the fact that this vehicle is going to be able to make this journey more times because it's going faster. What I'm saying is that the amount of money for one trip, for one thing delivered, which you can see here, 346 in that case, is going to be higher for this one than for the other truck. It is really per unit of things delivered. So on top of that, of course, this vehicle is going to make more trips, which means that it's going to make more money if you only have one truck, or more importantly, it means you're going to need less trucks. So tip number 3 is basically remember to always upgrade your vehicle when you get new vehicles that are faster. In tip number 2, we spoke about the distance being quite important. So you may think, okay, then let me take something from one corner of the map and just transport it to the other corner of the map. And yes, at some point you're gonna want to do this. This is what I'm doing here with this airport, for example. But at the same time, usually when you start, money is a bit tight. You don't have that much money, so creating a road that will go from one side of the map to the other is just gonna use all of your money. So start a bit small and then grow those roads. Similarly, I would say start really with roads and not with trains, because trains will cost you more. Tip number 5 is about building what you need and not building as big as you think you'll need in the future, because it is linked to the cost that you'll have to pay to build it, but also the maintenance. For example, this is a truck station with 6 platforms and of 30 lanes. This will cost me almost $500,000 just to build it, and then it will also give me, of course, quite a bit of maintenance that we'll see. Versus this one is only one platform of 10 meters. It costs me only $60,000, and then the maintenance cost almost $4,400 for this one, 10 times. And this is just one. You're gonna have many all across the map. So tip number 5 is start small, start with what you need at the time, and then you can grow it later. And similarly, you may not need a station at all. For example, you may just, if you're only unloading in the city, you can just build a truck unload station for a cost of $1,000. This is really nothing. Tip number 6 is to use the tools here. These are layers to show you a bit what is happening on the map. This first one shows you, for example, the heights, like where are the mountains. So for example, if the straight line is showing you a bridge or tunnel, with this, you know where to go to just avoid it, but at the same time not make a road that is too long. Similarly, another one that's super important is this destination layer. It shows you how many people actually want to go somewhere. For example, it says that there's 75 people, 76 now people that are taking this road, then 90, they're taking that road, and obviously you see that they want to go to this other city here. So it gives you a good idea of the demand that is potential for your passenger here, also of the traffic, if it's private or public, you want it to be public to have less cars on the road. This shows you where certain resources are needed to. This shows you the traffic, right? Right now, this is pretty good, really good traffic. There's no, traffic jam. So that's why we're not getting a malus. On the other hand, we are getting a very big malus on pollution, noise, emissions. And that's why, again, you may want to click on this to see where is this coming from. And there you can clearly see it's coming from the airport, where the planes are, landing over here and then going that way. And then that helps you to do something, right? Because, for example, it could mean, okay, I'm going to destroy the airport and put it just a bit further over here. And then I know that the emissions are going to stop here and not touch the city. Or it could also be just to turn the airport. Instead of the planes coming this way, you could have the planes coming like this, and then they would avoid again the city. All of these layers are really important to help you optimize your city. Tip number 7 is that the town, unless you're using specific modes, these towns are going to grow organically. That means 2 things. One is, especially at the beginning, don't hesitate to do things like this, where even if they say 2 buildings will be removed, it's fine. Those buildings are just going to pop somewhere else in the cities. It's not as if they are permanently gone. Second is you can also guide this development. And this is, for example, something like this. For example, if you want to avoid that there's too many houses that are going this way, but none over here, well, you could do something like this, where we're going to remove this building here. Now, houses later on will make sure to be built on the side of this road. You can create from the start a bit of the outside of your city needs to look, and then focus on the inside. Tip number 8 is let me explain to you a bit the line manager and how powerful it can be. First of all, make sure that you rename these lines with names that you are comfortable with. That will help you find those lines. For example, I like to have all of my buses together and put bus and then the city. And when there's several buses line the city, maybe it's going to be Edgware North, then the second one will be Edgware South, then maybe it's going to be Edgware North to South, those type of things, so that you really know which one you're talking about. To help with that, don't hesitate to even rename the cities, rename the stations. You can really rename everything in this game. But more important than just renaming the station is the tools here. This is to choose which of the platform is going to be used. This is really important for your trains. But the one I think is really underused is here. It says load if available, meaning that the truck is going to arrive, take whatever is on the platform and then just leave. Especially for your cargo, you want to use one of these. You want your train, you want your trucks to just wait at the station until they're full. There's no point in having trucks on the road that are half full for most of the time. So you can use that, and then you can even tell the truck to wait as long as it takes to get there. And another thing that is not used enough is here you can decide your truck or your train, etc., what to load, what to unload, at what percentage. For example, you can do something like this. You can say, please take 50% of this and 50% of that, and make sure that you don't take any bread. That may seem overly complex, especially at the beginning. You definitely don't need that. But when you arrive to a point where you have a big train station where you're delivering 3-4 different goods, picking some, etc., you're gonna want to use this to make sure that your trains or trucks are doing exactly what you want them to do. Number 10 is about the different types of vehicles and when to use which. You have to understand that each of the vehicle types have very different strengths and weaknesses. Things like how quickly they get to a very high speed, or how high their high speed can be, also how much they can transport, many other things like their cost, their emissions. There's a lot of parameters. I won't go into all of the details, but I'll give you a few pointers. The first thing is when you want to do small journeys, especially journeys into town. This is when you need to use your truck. I think it makes sense. Everybody can understand that. Space from here to here is basically the space of an airport. And so of course, it's not gonna work to put an airport here and another just to deliver here to there. Also because it takes some time for a plane to take off and for a plane to land. So small routes like this, you definitely want to use your trucks. Then the trains are really good for two things. One is what I would call medium-sized journeys, something like from here to here. This is starting to get a bit long for your trucks. I'm not saying you can't do it. I mean, I do it, for example, from here to there, but this will make you money. This is long enough for a train to make money. The other thing that is great with trains is they can transport very big capacity. I mean, this one is only 78, but you can go a lot more than that. With trains, you can transport 200 at a time. So that is when you want to use train, when you need to transport on a medium distance a lot of goods. And now that leaves the planes, which are for very long distance. Why long distance? Because they get to a speed that is 3, 4, 5 times higher than all of the other types of vehicles. So they're really good for very long distances. The only problem of planes is that they actually have a fairly low capacity. For example, this is one of the biggest and it's only 51. I hope these 10 tips are helping you better understand Transport Fever 2. Don't hesitate to put in the comments below if you think I've forgotten something in my top 10. And also don't hesitate to check my channel for more video on Transport Fever 2, including a new Let's Play series that we're starting now.